early teenage years, ended up with bad stomach issues, intestinal issues, and it took them several years to diagnose it as Crohn's disease. And pretty much from there on out, it just kind of went downhill. I mean, the way they diagnosed it was that I got a blockage, and they ended up having to do emergency surgery and remove about 2.5 feet of my small intestine, including my ileum. And then there was pretty much no doubt that it was Crohn's at that point. And they had suspected it, but they'd also suspected everything from lactose intolerance to, I don't know, you name it.
A couple years ago, about 3 years ago now, I started experiencing some nausea more often than I had in the past, and some digestive issues and different things like that. I kind of reintroduced cannabis, trying to kind of deal with the nausea because Zofran and other pharmaceuticals would just knock me out. I wouldn't be nauseous anymore, but I wouldn't be conscious either. And so I knew the one thing I could count on is cannabis would help with the nausea, and it wouldn't knock me out. I relocated to New Mexico to become a legal patient. I've been living in Texas, and I guess in September 2011, and I relocated there early September around Labor Day, and 2 weeks later I ended up having a major surgery. Before I became a patient, before I'd even had my first appointment with a primary care physician there. And my intestines had twisted from previous surgeries that I'd had, either C-sections or other abdominal surgeries, maybe one of my gallbladder out, who knows, but my intestines had looped around themselves, and they ended up removing 6 feet of my small intestine. I was in the hospital for 10 days. First 3 days I was in recovery because they didn't have an ICU for me, and when I got out of the hospital, I had lost 25 pounds over the course of that 10 days, and I was already weak and not feeling well, and it's just been a long, tough recovery since. So a couple months later, after I'd recovered, I applied for and became a patient in New Mexico under the qualifying condition of nausea and vomiting. I actually thought once I had survived that surgery and recovered from it, all these problems with nausea and all these digestive issues I'd been experiencing would kind of go away. And they didn't. They stayed the same. I just felt like 24 hours a day I'd been hitting the bat, hit in the stomach with a baseball bat. It hurt all the time. And in addition to that, I would just get these waves of nausea.
It was almost a balancing act for a while to take Zonegran to this level so that the migraines would not be unbearable, and it was kind of a trade-off for the nausea and vertigo to take migraines more versus the vomiting. And that was interesting for a while because I would take any medication at this point if it relieved me from going days of just puking. And I'll say that I've gotten down to 108 pounds twice this year from the episodes. I mean, I bounced back pretty quickly, but it's really scary to see yourself that thin and still be hunched over a toilet and just going for it. It's not a walk in the park.
To be really honest with you, I started smoking cannabis pretty much like everybody else back in the 80s and 70s probably did, more recreational than medicinal. And without knowing it, was basically saving my own life and medicating then. And the way I see it is that my body knew it needed something. So basically, from the time I was, I guess, 13 or 14, it was more or less the only way I could get an appetite. It was the only way that I could eat full meals or eat full days or not go days without eating. And at that point my folks even kind of realized it and didn't really like it. But when I'd come home at 1 o'clock in the morning and eat everything in the refrigerator after not eating anything for 3 days, my mom was like, okay, let him go. It's all good. And basically it allows me to eat, and not to mention the pain relief I get from it. I mean, there's a lot of different things cannabis does for me. Primarily with Crohn's disease, it allows me to eat. Allows my stomach not to get upset once I've eaten. allows it to process it quicker, easier, faster. And again, it allows me to sleep at night without pain. You know, it has allowed me to reduce the amount of medications that I took at one time. I was on 13 different medications. Please don't ask me to name them all because I couldn't. And now I am taking on a regular basis 3. And hope to be off one of those very soon again. And I don't know if I'll ever be able to, because I've been on them so long now and my body's dependent on them. I don't know whether the prednisone and the azathioprine I'll ever be able to completely go off. Hopefully I will. But the only other one that I take, and only as needed, is an oxycodone, an opiate, and I've been able to reduce my usage of it. And the doctors are amazed because no one who uses opiates reduces their usage of them. It just doesn't happen. At least that's what my doctor's told me. She's amazed. So I continue to use it and recognize it more as a medicine than I ever did, and have seen some pretty amazing things, not only with myself but with close personal friends and relatives too.
And so in trying to recover from this, it was really hard to gain weight. When I finally received my patient card in January of 2012, just last year, just slightly over a year ago, it really changed my life, because it went from just smoking cannabis, you know, occasionally to kind of help me with the nausea, to learning about a lot of alternative delivery methods. Tinctures has been a huge thing for me. Putting tincture in my tea so it burns the alcohol off. The cannabis just immediately kind of quells the nausea that I have, and it helps with sleep and other things. And as I was kind of going through these, this particular surgery and recovery and dealing with this nausea for like a 2-year period, almost leading up to the surgery and then after it, I kind of forgotten about the fact that I'd always been kind of dealing with kind of chronic fatigue issues on top of it. I've had a lot of chronic pain issues since my 30s and those type things. And what I found in becoming a patient is I'm able to manage those things a lot better. And now at this time, the only pharmaceuticals that I take still are a little bit of Pepsid for just control of acid. My stomach just tends to overproduce acid. And beyond all that, cannabis really takes care of most of it. I'm able to control, you know, pain as well as these nausea issues.
I had seen a national broadcast in Colorado with someone who has the exact diagnosis as me, chronic vomiting syndrome. And I've had to educate my doctors on that symptom, or the diagnosis, when I would go to see them. They hadn't heard it before. In every emergency room that I've been to, a couple across the nation because I've had episodes on vacation, it's usually unknown. They sometimes will have an ambitious doctor that'll look it up on his phone real quick, but most of the time it's dismissed, and I'm a card patient, and I'll have to say going into the ER, yes, I've consumed cannabis, and it's very dismissive in most cases. In my hometown, I've been to the ER at least 30 times in 2 years. So yeah, going through the different prescriptions really brought that up. I've not had an episode since about May, and I had stopped taking all of the other prescriptions in May. So it's working out very well for me.
So cannabis is your only medicine then?
The only thing that I am consuming is cannabis, and the occasional like tea for caffeine. But that's all that I consume, and it is exceptionally relieving to have one thing that balances all of my symptoms and brings me to a happier place.
Good evening. Welcome to the Red Carpet Charity Ball hosted tonight by the Northwest Cannabis Market. I'm Regina Nelson with Cannabis Patient Network Institute. We want to send out a big thank you to Mike and the staff of Northwest Cannabis Market, especially to Kevin, who helped connect us with them. He is a Crohn's patient who was moved by work we've done, and helped them understand that our organization needed support like this. And we're greatly appreciative of each and every one of you here tonight. We'd also like to thank those tonight who contributed to our silent auction, from Pearl Jam to George McMahon, a federal IND patient, from Magical Butter to Organobliss, Instakarma vaporizers, and many, many organizations within the Seattle area, so many that I can't name. Thank you very much for supporting an organization within cannabis. CPN Institute is a product of Cannabis Patient Network, which was started in 2006. My partner, Mark Pedersen, has gone all over the country interviewing cannabis patients, encouraging people to share their story. We found this is the most powerful way to change policy in ways that help cannabis patients. We'll be coming to Seattle. We're not there tonight, and for that we're disappointed, but we will be there to see you soon. And we look forward to gathering your testimonials and helping you help others understand why medical cannabis is more important, and that recreational legalization is not enough for patients. We all have an endocannabinoid system. We all have a stake in this game. We thank you for sharing your testimonies, for supporting our organization, and we look forward to getting to know you. Thank you, and really enjoy your evening.